We're back with a new batch of stories.
February is Black History Month, and VA Central Office kicked it off with a compelling video.
The last surviving soldier who served on the Western Front during World War I turned 110 last week.
Don't move, we're coming back in just a few seconds. Hello, I'm Jim Benson with the Office of Public Affairs.
And I'm Alexis Lukas with the Employee Education System. Thanks for tuning in today. The national theme for Black History Month this year is African Americans and the Civil War. Employees at VA Central Office got to glimpse the richness of that history last week. VA General Counsel Will Gunn introduced Frank Martin, director of For Love of Liberty, the story of America's Black Patriots. Martin treated employees with an abbreviated version of the PBS miniseries, hosted by Halle Berry and narrated by Avery Brooks. Martin used letters, diaries, speeches, journalistic accounts, historical text, and military records to document and acknowledge the sacrifices and accomplishments of African American servicemen and women. Here's a short clip from the video.
The Union soldiers were cut down by a devastating torrent of gunfire. Sergeant Major Lewis Douglas, son of Frederick Douglass, wrote of the slaughter in a letter to his fiancée.
It was terrible. A shell would explode and clear a space of 20 feet. Our men would close up again, but it was no use. How I got out of that fight alive, I cannot tell. But I am here. Remember, if I die in a good cause. Sergeant Major Lewis Douglas.
272 members of the 54th were either killed or wounded in the attack. The unit's commanding officer, 25-year-old Colonel Robert Shaw, was one of those who lost his life.
We were exposed to a murderous fire from the battery of the fort. Mortal men could not stand such a fire. When the men saw their gallant leader fall, they made a desperate effort to get him out. But they were shot down or reeled in the ditch below. Corporal James Gooding.
When the color bearer was wounded, Private William Carney raced forward to rescue the American flag. As the former slave fought his way back to the Union lines, he was shot in the head, chest, right arm, and both legs. Despite his wounds, the 23-year-old soldier staggered into camp, clutching the bloody flag. His surviving comrades broke into cheers as William Carney proudly exclaimed,
"Boys, I did my duty. The dear old flag never touched the ground." Private William Carney.
For his actions that day, William Carney was awarded the Medal of Honor.
I decided I could best serve my God by serving my country and my oppressed brothers. Private William Carney.
Frank Buckles has become an icon in the past 10 years. On February 1st, 2001, he was one of a handful of survivors of World War I, the war that was supposed to end all wars. Now, he is the last survivor of World War I. On February 1st, last week, Army Private Frank Buckles, an ambulance driver during the First War, turned 110 years old. For the past several years, he and Michigan photographer David DeYoung have led an uphill effort to build a World War I memorial on the National Mall. Now they are working to finish a documentary film to raise funds to build the memorial. They need at least $150,000. On Buckles' birthday last week at 11:11 a.m., a campaign to raise the funds was begun on Kickstarter.com. And there's information at Frank Buckles' website, seen here on the screen. Here is DeYoung's preview of the incomplete film.
My father is the epitome of an adventurous spirit, as far as not so much just what he would do, but what he would encourage others to do as well.
During 18 months of fighting, we suffered more deaths, over 116,000, than in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan combined.
How did you survive all these things? What's the secret of your survival and your longevity. And he said, well, when you think you're going to die, don't.
He would describe driving down the muddy roads in the ambulance, transporting wounded people and wounded soldiers. Just a fascinating glimpse into what was occurring nearly 100 years ago.
He happened to be in the Philippines when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Held as a prisoner of war in Manila, he ate his meals out of a single tin cup for 39 months. He still has the cup.
But with the Japanese, it wasn't surrender. You had to annihilate them. They would never surrender.
What is important is the ability to survive.
This is history. This will never happen again.
My partner here today is the host of the February edition of The American Veteran, the VA's Emmy Award-winning monthly video news magazine. Jim taped this preview earlier.
On this month's edition of The American Veteran, we take a look at how VA partnerships help serve the needs of veterans, using new technologies to improve the delivery of health care, a VA program that serves sight-impaired veterans, how e-benefits helps veterans gain access to VA programs and services, and a VA research team recognized for superior quality. That's the lineup. Hope you'll join us.
The American Veteran can be found on the VA homepage. Just click on Media Room, then Video. You can also watch it on VA's Knowledge Network, the Content Distribution Network, and the Pentagon Channel.
Support for the 15th Winter Haven Stand Down for homeless veterans at the Washington, D.C. VA Medical Center on January 22nd exceeded previous Winter Havens. The number of public and private sector vendors and their donations of time, goods, and resources, and the number of volunteers, including most of the staff manning stations throughout the medical center, were greater than ever. Here's another clip from Secretary and Mrs. Shinseki from our interview with them at the end of Winter Haven number 15. The clip is currently running on VA's web and YouTube pages.
I spent a good bit of time in uniform and very little knowledge or association with VA, so I had a steep learning curve when I arrived 2 years ago. And I think one of the things that hit me hardest when I first got here was someone explained to me that veterans lead the nation in homelessness, depression, substance abuse, suicides, and we're right up there in joblessness as well. And after having spent 38 years knowing those youngsters while they served in uniform, that statement was a real kick in the gut to understand what that meant. And as I've said before, I had to repeat it to myself over and over again to remind myself that something needed to be done about this. I repeated it so that I wouldn't become inured to that statement, so that it didn't disappear into the background noise of everyday business.
Right.
And that's why we're committed to ending homelessness, because to do that, we have to take care of all the other things. It's jobs, it's education, it's mental health, it's giving people dignity and respect, and getting them back on track.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what we're about.
And we have heard story after story about veterans who have come to VA and have been literally saved. Today's stand down is an opportunity for us to find others who can, like that gentleman who lived in a box, who might find inspiration when he comes here today, to find others who care deeply and who are able to help him perhaps find a purpose and meaningful occupation or a desire to help others as well. And for that gentleman who is now part of your VA system, who is helping others, he is probably able to help others in a way that perhaps others who have not had the experience of homelessness, that he is able to relate to them in a very personal manner and perhaps convey to them the importance of what VA has available and what ordinary citizens want to do to help to end homelessness.
Did you know that the 2011 National Salute to Veteran Patients begins next week, February 13th through 19th? Last year's honorary chairman, soap opera star James Reynolds, is sharing duties this year with country singer and wounded warrior Stephen Cochran, both of whom are Marine veterans. Thousands of Valentines have been donated by school children, collected in grocery stores, churches, and retail establishments all over the country for delivery to VA hospitals. And this year, 17 Valentines for Veterans concerts are slated around the country with performers like Aaron Tippin, Lori Morgan, The Platters, The Stylistics, The Drifters, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, Little Anthony and the Imperials, The Temptations Review, Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and John Cicada. Check the Help Hospitalized Veterans webpage for a concert site near you, and please be sure to thank a veteran next week.
That's it for this week's show. We have a bittersweet note, though, at this point for VACO folks anyway. Alexis is leaving to take a new position at the Philadelphia VA Medical Center. We wish you all the best, Alexis, and hope you'll come back and join the chair some other time in the future.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm looking forward to my new job in Philadelphia and hope to be back in Washington to share the VA News Desk again. I'm Alexis Lukas, and thanks for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful week.